joining us now on the program is Becky LaMacca, a long time, you've actually been on our program for, I want to say 15, 20 years now.
I have, a long
Wow.
time.
Yeah, you're the Director of Grief and Education for O'Connor Mortuary. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Kind of a tough subject, but tell us a little bit, what is grief? And it's interesting how people handle grief in such a different way, and the timing of grief, because some people might show grief right away, and some people show grief even months and years after, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people think of O'Connor Mortuary, they think, someone I care about has died and I have to engage services through O'Connor to care for the deceased. And that is a big part of what we do, is caring for the deceased. Yet a big part of our role is to also come alongside the grieving. Mm-hmm. And as you said, people grieve in very different ways. We kind of look at it as on a spectrum. You have people who are more instrumental grievers, who grieve by doing, and then you have people who are grievers who maybe show their emotion a little bit more. What I always say to people, because they're like, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Nothing is wrong with you. We all grieve in our own unique way. Right. And the other thing people ask me is, when is this going to be done? When am I going to be feeling better? Yeah. And the news they don't want to hear is it's really never going to be done. Mm-hmm. We never stop grieving. I don't like the word getting over it or closure or recovering from grief, because a little piece of us will always have that person in our heart. There will be a song that comes on or something that happens that will bring us back to and remind us of that individual. The good news is grief is fluid, and grief is really about learning how to take this loss that has impacted us in such a profound way and learning to incorporate it into our lives, learning to adapt our lives around this loss. And most of us do that over time, and we move forward. Right. So that's the good news for people who are grieving. Very early on in our grief, it can seem like, we get this tunnel vision, and our world as we know it has really ended. Yet over time, we adapt, we learn to integrate that loss into our lives, and down the road, more happy memories than tears.
Right. And grief is different depending on where you are in your life as well, because you're like, oh, okay, I've already kind of done this before, and it's maybe somebody that's very common to you, but then 5 years from now, someone similar, you might just have grief in a totally different way. So it really depends too where you are in your life too.
And that's the other thing I will say to families and to grievers who are calling to talk with me or meeting with me, because sometimes people want to prioritize their grief. And really, we can't do that. I mean, we grieve what we grieve. Sometimes we can have a pet who dies, and that pet has been our world, and we are grieving that death maybe more than we grieve the death of a human in our lives, because in that moment in time, that is how that's impacted us. We grieve non-death losses too, right? The ability to, maybe we aren't able to drive anymore, or maybe losing eyesight due to macular degeneration. Maybe we've had a stroke and learning to rebuild one side of our body. So those are all things that we grieve too. And we can't always prioritize. I always say to families, and I say to individuals who are grieving, as we have a tendency to want to push it away, and we want to isolate ourselves, rather than pushing those feelings away, take some time to lean into those feelings and accept them and examine them. And after you do that, then move toward people versus moving away from people.
Yeah. Do you find people question their mortality too when they go through this process? Because death, to some people is such a final chapter, but it kind of makes you think like, okay, what am I doing in my life, and what do I want to do in the next 5 to 25 years? Mm-hmm.
I absolutely think that's true. I think we can't help but think of our own mortality when someone we know, someone we care about dies. And yes, I think one of the things we do naturally in grief too is we take those character qualities of that person, right? And we think about those, and we think about, gosh, you know what? I want to be like like Sandy, you know, I really want to incorporate. Sandy was always making sure she took care of all of the friends in the group, and I want to do that too. And so absolutely we think about that, and we think about what can I take away from that relationship and put into, incorporate into my life.
Right. What are some of the don'ts when it comes to grief? There's got to be a couple of things. It's like, you know what, you really shouldn't, at least right now I'm just thinking, okay, isolate yourself.
Yeah.
You need to get out there, get some education through someone like yourself, and reach out to family members and friends.
Well, one of the things I say to people is I say, don't should yourself. Don't should yourself, right? I should be here in this process already, or I should be doing this. And I agree, I do say don't isolate yourselves, but there are times when you do need the solitude and you need the contemplation. So again, listening to your body, knowing yourself, leaning into your feelings and examining them. Maybe you need a couple hours or a couple of days to have some solitude, and then say, okay, and then I'm going to call my one good friend who I know isn't going to push me too hard and go have lunch or go have breakfast and do that. So it's okay to feel how you feel, and don't let other people who say you should be getting over this, or you should be moving on, or you should move his clothes out of the closet. You do what feels right for you.
Right. And every situation is different.
Every single situation is different. We are all unique grievers.
Right. Well, that's why it's so important. O'Connor Mortuary has been in our community in Orange County, I don't know, 40, 50 years. I know the O'Connor family, Neil's father actually started. I think his grandfather actually even started. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah. It is. We're getting ready to actually celebrate our 125th year. Yes.
Oh, that's a pretty long time.
The firm started in 1898. So yes, this family has been coming alongside grieving families for way beyond you and me.
Right.
So that is really their gift to the community is through my role, through education, through providing grief resources. And you don't need to be using our mortuary to call and speak with me and help me help you connect with some of the resources that are available in the community if you feel like you're struggling a little bit.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I was going to ask you, because a lot of people, like we just talked about, they experience grief at different timelines. And so if they could just go to o'connormortuary.com, they could just look up your information. If they just want to talk on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes, no commitment, and just help you through a process that may be very difficult for you.
Absolutely. And I will also say, always welcome to take phone calls. And we have a magnificent grief and healing section on our website too. That is free. We have wonderful brochures that are downloadable, great articles. So please take advantage of that resource too.
And located real close to us, I believe just right off Alicia and Paseo de Valencia. So it's probably right outside of Gate 4 down the street by Laguna Hills High School.
Yes,
so
it
it's
is.
less than a 5-minute drive away. Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the program. I know it's a difficult subject, but an important one. And when people are suffering from grief, or even someone that's hopefully well, not hopefully, someone that's dealing with even someone that has Alzheimer's or just an illness, that's part of that grieving process.
It sure
too.
is.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Right. Thanks so much for joining us on the program today.
Always good to see you.
Yeah. That's
Thanks.
Becky Lamaka. She's with O'Connor Mortuary. If you want more information, go to their website, o'connormortuary.com. Well, we'll be right back with more of our program in the UCI Clare School of Arts right after this.